Hello, everyone.
Hi, guys.
Hi, everyone. How you doing?
Very well. How are you?
Good. Welcome to Bifrost AMA, and love to have you here. So appreciate your time. And let's see. I think we got a decent amount of people here. So perfect. Well, welcome, and I guess we'll get started real quick. Yeah, congratulations on your guys' crowd loan that you guys have running right now. I know it's a very tight race. So
It sure is. I think it's adding to the drama, which is only good for the Polkadot ecosystem, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm not surprised. You guys have been two stellar projects, and everything's been great. I think everybody was predicting this was going to be like this. Everyone loves both projects, so, and I don't think there's a real loser here. I think either one wins. It's going to be great. When the person that comes in second is still the winner in my book.
I don't think Polkadot can lose with two successful projects, right?
No.
Plus, of course, more to come.
Yeah, exactly. And all the features. I mean, I can't keep up with everything too at times. It's so many cool stuff coming out. So perfect. Well, welcome. And maybe we can get started real quick. If you want to just tell us maybe about yourself and kind of where about how you're involved with Moonbeam and the foundation itself, maybe.
Sure. So my name is Katie Butler. I work for PureStake, actually, which is the technology company helping to build Moonbeam. My role is to lead the marketing team. And so prior to PureStake, I actually focused on marketing to software engineers. And so it was in that way a really natural transition to end up in the crypto space, although there's not much that can compare you or prepare you for this kind of experience. So of course, I'm learning more every day. But that's what initially drew me to the space is I like working with quirky, smart people. And the crypto industry certainly has not failed me in that regard. So it's been a really interesting experience for me so far.
Which software, where'd you work before this? I was just curious.
Oh, a whole bunch of places, but I think the most applicable experience was a company called Codoscope, which spun out of a consulting firm. And so they were focused on taking software security tools and bringing them to software engineers. Okay. And they were acquired in 2016, I think.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, you can see the crypto space is so different. I came from the mobile space and so mobile apps, and this is just, it's very different. It's really cool. It's so fast moving and evolving, and everybody just wants to, build cool stuff. So, which is awesome.
Agree.
Definitely. Yeah, maybe you can tell us about Moonbeam, as a whole, the foundation, because I think a lot of people still don't really understand the whole how it's all structured. Because I know a fair amount of people that are very involved do, but it's kind of interesting how you guys have built that up. I think the Moonbeam Foundation is really kind of interesting the way you guys have that set up.
Sure. Well, the Moonbeam Foundation is sort of the arm that controls tokens and things like that. And so when there's things like a crowd loan being conducted, that's actually run by the Moonbeam Foundation, which is a Singapore entity. And so for legal reasons, those are separate and they're not really affiliated with PureStake directly. So that's kind of what the foundation does, and their goal on an ongoing basis will be to kind of fund and invest in the growth of both the Moonbeam and Moonriver networks. So that's very much something that we'll see more and more post-launch. But even today, the grants program is something that is very, very active and continually accepting kind of new applications from projects that want to build in the ecosystem. To kind of answer the first part of your question in terms of what Moonbeam is, and I mentioned Moonriver as well. So Moonbeam is uniquely fully Ethereum compatible to the degree that we're able, and that's actually very different from any other chain in the Polkadot ecosystem, certainly, but really beyond that, most other EVM compatible chains, because it goes beyond this like basic EVM compatibility. And so, as much as it's focusing on improving the developer experience, the end result for most users is that we've gotten way more applications and projects building on us because it's this better environment, and that enables us to congregate users and assets much more quickly, which for people in the Polkadot ecosystem means adoption and traction really quickly. So I think the Moonbeam network launching to Polkadot is going to be big, of course, for us since we're helping to build it and we're working on getting people onboarded. But it's going to be pretty big for the Polkadot ecosystem as a whole, because really we're looking at for the first time introducing not just smart contracts, but actual projects using those smart contracts actively, enthusiastically, and starting to kind of build out a really robust ecosystem.
Yeah, I just paid some ETH gas the other day for the first time in a little bit, and I was just like, why is this run on Moonbeam? Why isn't this on Moonriver? This should be on Moonriver. And I think that's where a lot of people are, and it's amazing how fast you guys are growing. I think, was it 8 million transactions recently you guys hit, or you had 5 million, I think, was it before?
Yeah, well, so the funky thing about Polkadot is like measuring transactions is a little bit abstract because there's something called extrinsics, and every like block has some level of extrinsics that include like timestamps and stuff. So we typically look to Moonscan which is our Etherscan implementation, when we're measuring transactions. So if you look there, we're probably about 7.5 million right now. And if you look at Subscan, we're probably closer to like 1,000 total signed and unsigned extrinsics, which I know is a little bit technical, but there is some.
I know a lot of people, don't get that. And I know some people are non-technical. I always encourage people just to play around with Polkadot JS wallet, because then you can see the intrinsics, and you can actually get in there and see. It's a little technical, but it's cool. So yeah, awesome. Perfect. Yeah. So I don't know. Do you have any other statistics you want to drop on us or anything like that? I know that's pretty cool. Anything else you guys have wanted to brag about?
Yeah.
You guys should brag because you guys have done a lot.
Well, that's what I feel like we've really, we tend to not be the hypey project. We don't like to talk about things and achievements in and of themselves. We like to talk about it as a stepping stone to the next thing. So this week has really, forced us to brag a little bit more, because I'm not sure people have really seen everything that's happening on Moonriver. But really what we're seeing is that we're the only project with significant traction on the Kusama ecosystem. And I measure that by looking at, everything I can think of. So we've mentioned transactions. That's of course far and away higher than any other parachain. But if you're looking at things like social engagement, we've frequently been listed as a top token on Lunar Crush for social engagement and community over and over again, like in September and I think October and November as well. And then, I don't know how you want to measure market cap, or measure value, but if you look at market cap, that's obviously like.
Yeah, it's the community. I think the community is really cool behind you guys. I mean, that's what I think is driving it so much. I mean, I follow a lot of people on Twitter, and I see some the funniest Moonriver memes and all that, and it's cool. It's really that stuff is engaging, and I think a lot of people like that, and that's how people learn about the project, which is really cool. So yeah, awesome. So what led you to Substrate, and why a Polkadot parachain? Why not, what do you guys see that you guys gauged by doing it this way, and why have the Canary chain instead of having just one single chain and migrated over? So sorry, it's a lot to ask. Yeah.
I think, so two things. Our CEO and founder, Derek Yu, he was kind of spearheading this process in 2019 to explore new chains to deploy to. And so Polkadot stuck out for a couple of reasons. The technology is just incredible. The Substrate framework, I don't think they get enough credit for how much work and time went into it, and how much blockchains like us, like Moonbeam, are able to leverage it to speed time to market. Like we don't have to build a whole blockchain. We can build it using the Substrate framework, and that's a huge leg up. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, when he was looking around at the ecosystem, he was impressed with not only the team at Polkadot, but the other teams building. And so it was sort of an early indicator that, there's a there kind of thing. There's something there that we can't quite capture, but it seems to be drawing in really smart people. We need to take a more serious look at it. But then once we got into the Polkadot ecosystem, our mantra has always been about a multi-chain future. And in that future, it's very much not about having chains that are all the same. It's about having lots of different chains in a rich ecosystem. I mean, I use quilts and tapestries as examples to illustrate what this ecosystem will look like. And that ecosystem is very centered around specialization, which is something that Polkadot kind of uniquely focuses on. So each of these parachains, like Moonbeam, we have the ability to kind of rip out some of the pieces of Substrate and replace them with things like, we don't want to use the Substrate account format. We want to use the Ethereum account format to maximize compatibility. We'll do that, and we can. because of Substrate and the way that Polkadot's designed. And that's something that we wouldn't really be able to do in most other ecosystems.
Yeah. I mean, I played both with Solidity and Substrate. Substrate's so cool. It's so modularized. These palettes are just easy, and it's easy just to replace things. If you want to keep the same storage, you can keep the same storage. So yeah, it does have a lot of. I think it's going to be amazing how quickly things are going to get built out, because it is way more approachable than having to build everything from scratch with on Ethereum or whatever. So that's awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Yeah. I think it's a great choice. I always recommend people to, like, I have a friend that wants to get into blockchain development. Anybody here in the call too, if you want to play with Substrate, it's technical and all that, but if you're a programmer, you can figure it out much easier than you can just jumping into Solidity and have to learn a brand new format. So it's pretty cool. So anyway, so can you explain maybe like a bit of how Moonbeam's EVM, I guess I should say, allows for cross-chain compatibility and interoperability. So like how that works, kind of like, maybe you guys can explain a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, so I would say, our primary role in this ecosystem, as I see it, is to kind of spark this growth, especially in the near term, right? So what we're doing is making it really easy for projects that are already using Solidity or Viper smart contracts, or projects that are upstarts, which we've seen a lot of these too, that want to go native to Moonriver or Moonbeam. Solidity, obviously tools and resources are easily available. Those teams can deploy most easily to Moonbeam far and away than any other parachain. And so that creates, of course, a little ecosystem on Moonbeam. But to address the cross-chain pieces, we have all of the easy parts of Ethereum, right? You can create an ERC20 on top of Moonbeam. And then because of the way that we're working with this cross-chain messaging, XCM, you'll be able to use those ERC20s kind of interactively across chains. It's something we're working on actively right now. And you should expect to see kind of the initial deployments be available in the coming weeks, particularly on Moonriver. So keep an eye out for that. But I think what is most important is to kind of keep the best of Ethereum, but also, not lose those native Substrate benefits that you get in terms of moving across the relay chain and some of these other parachains, including state mines. So that's something that we very much are focused on right now, and we'll continue to release new functionality in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I'm sure the community is excited about it. Yeah, one thing, that I mentioned too, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm trying to remember. So when you guys started with when EVM was first the Ethereum virtual machine, you guys first started working with it. Were you guys were, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys were working with it on a separate, away from what Gavin's team was, and building with Substrate, and then you guys kind of, I think, came back over. They were like really, I think he was impressed with what you guys had done or something. Is that right? Or did you guys have a?
It sounds right. So
I've heard different things, how it evolved. You guys were
yeah. Yeah. It depends on the timeline, I think. But so we kind of first started working on it in the winter of 2019 into 2020. And at that point, Frontier did exist. So Frontier, you mentioned extensible palettes, like Frontier is a palette inside of Substrate. It did exist, and it had work. A guy named Wei has done quite a bit of work on this. But we were really struggling to get it to work the way we needed. And it seemed like there was some additional functionality that needed to be added. And so we submitted a grant to do some pretty serious work on this palette. And so rather than only building our own parachain and kind of doing what we wanted to do from an EVM perspective, we submitted that back to the community, and that's now part of Substrate. That said, there's quite a bit that we do that is different from other chains that have integrated this EVM compatibility. So I've mentioned account structures a little bit. That's something that only Moonbeam is doing right now. Yeah. And it's purely because, whenever there's kind of two choices, we choose the one that maximizes Ethereum compatibility. And in order to use MetaMask seamlessly and natively, we kind of I keep using this term like ripped out, but we have standardized on the H160 account structure, which is that like 0x format that you're familiar with. So there's sort of, our contributions to Frontier, which were primarily mid-year last year. And then since then, a number of advanced functionality that we've added into our own chain in order to, again, create that specialized chain where we have maximized compatibility.
yeah, there's so much to do there. it's an evolving piece.
It gets messy once you dig into it, right? Like you think it sounds easy and nice, but then when you start to think about, oh, well, wait, I need to have a dot address that's separate from my KSM address, that's separate from my Ethereum address. Like, how do I make these talk to each other?
Oh yeah, exactly. And you have to make sure all of the, I think I was sending some Moonriver over early on, and I think the feature wasn't totally enabled, so I was stuck for a little bit just because I was sending it from one address to another, from from a substrate address to a Ethereum address, and it was kind of confusing at first early on when you guys first launched. And yeah, so I know there's a lot of like edge points and stuff you have to account for, which is a lot. So awesome. Yeah. So how can other Summit projects like Bifrost benefit from Moonbeam? What Moonbeam is building. So like, how can all these other projects? Because I know that's the cool thing. I think there's so much community based here. I know you guys are running up against Akala, but you guys are also looking at Akala as a fellow person in this community. So yeah, definitely. So maybe you want to go over that a little bit, like if you guys, how other
sure. So I think there's like the near term answer and the long term answer. So in the near term, obviously we're looking to work with all of the other parachains to make sure we have assets moving seamlessly across each of these parachains. And I think that is one of the things that is most unique to Polkadot. And once those pieces really get going, once all of these parachains are kind of, operating at full capacity and starting to build their own audience and traction, these interoperable components will really become obvious in their value. But for us, like that's kind of the nearest term goal, is like, how do we list Mover on other chains? How do we get other Kusama parachains listed on Moonriver? And then of course, the same process will be applied to Moonbeam. In the long term, I think going back to this kind of note on specialization, some of the really interesting things that we've thought about, but we're not really sure, if we're 2 years out, 4 years out from this occurring, is something like, referencing specific functionality on different kinds of chains. And so I think it would be really cool to see like these hybrid type interfaces across different chains, how realistic that is and how close we are given, infrastructure needs and, the newness of XCM. I'm not really sure, but that's what I think could be really cool, is being able to pull in different specialization features of each chain in order to create like a more interesting, richer product.
The true highway. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it would be so cool. I'm not a technologist, so I don't know how far we are from that, but that's what I think would be a game changer for the Polkadot ecosystem.
Yeah, well, I can't believe how fast all this has come together. I mean, I thought XCM is just such a difficult thing to do. People don't realize how much complexity goes behind that, and it just like seems like it's evolving very fast, which is amazing. So, yeah, definitely. What about the strategy for your guys' Polkadot Crowdloan? Do you guys have anything you want to share about that, and then like anything about the rewards process or anything you want to share currently?
Yeah, so I guess a couple of things. Like our Crowdloan has obviously been running for a couple of weeks. We are absolutely overwhelmed by the community support. And I think that's something that is very clear to us based on, on-chain metrics, as well as average contribution, is that it feels like Moonbeam is truly a community-driven project, which we love. And so that I think is certainly encouraging. And for us, it's a motivator, right? Like we're doing something right, and folks see it resonates. Like it's something that people believe in, and it feels like that's very much the mantra behind the project. So we're happy to see that. Our goal with the Crowdloan is really just to win one of these first 5 slots and to start producing blocks on December 17th. So just as a reminder, if folks participate in the Kusama Crowdloans, like I know Bifrost did, when you won a slot, you were able to start producing blocks immediately. That is not the case for Polkadot. We're all going to start producing blocks on the same date, which is December 17th. So it'll be a nice little Christmas present for us all. And once that happens, we're gonna start deploying functionality very, very quickly. And I think folks should expect to see that process happen a lot faster than it did on Moonriver. And similarly, because we know the timelines in advance, we should also see project deployment, some of these critical infrastructure pieces that took a couple weeks to get up and running on top of Moonriver. We should see those happen a lot faster on Moonbeam as well. Yeah. So that's kind of like our overall project trajectory. To address the rewards point, So the Moon River Crowdloan has 10% of the total Genesis supply as part of the rewards. 30% of those will be distributed immediately upon fully live, right? So that's when transfers are enabled. The remaining 70% will vest over the lease period, which on Polkadot is 96 weeks. So for folks who participated directly through the DApp, that's kind of how that will work. There are other mechanisms and other ways to contribute, whether it be through centralized exchanges or some of these, liquid staking options. And so for more information about those particular avenues, I would go to that provider and see what they can offer or how they're planning to distribute that. But that's kind of, how the chain will distribute the rewards.
Awesome. That's good. Yeah, I know the community really appreciates I think it's gone pretty fast. I think all these projects, I really have not been really disappointed with how fast things are, quickly getting out the rewards, getting out to the community. I think everybody's been, all the projects have been putting a big push to get them out to people early. It's a lot of work, and I would remind people all the time, be patient, because you guys are working your tails off, which is awesome. So we appreciate it. So yeah, what attracted you guys to work with Bifrost and the SALP, model, the slot auctions? Was there anything really that really attracted you guys like that? You guys excited about, being part of that?
I know for us, I think the primary differentiators were the technical competency and professionalness of the team. And so when you're working with another parachain, it sounds like that's kind of lip service, but it's really, really important, especially with some of these tight turnarounds and tight deadlines. Yeah. And so, we kind of had early conversations with the Bifrost team, but by and large came away with, they're asking the right questions. They're working on an integration that we can feel comfortable with. And so those for us were kind of standout reasons that Bifrost was going to be a good option.
Yeah, awesome. They're definitely so product featured. The core team is really have their heads down. They're awesome people. So great, cool. So I know they're very happy to have you guys a part of it. So it's great. So we've seen the success of the Moon River and all that and everything with gone live, but with all the integrations and projects building on top of it in the first few months, super impressive. But how do you anticipate the Moonbeam rollout, so the Glimmer rollout? How do you guys feel in that compared to? Do you guys feel like it's going to be quite a different process? I know you said about launching the rewards and stuff like that, but as far as actually utilizing the parachain, maybe.
So yeah, I talked about rewards. I did talk a little bit about the process, but just to give more information on timelines. Mm-hmm. So the Moon River rollout was 4 stages and took about 8 weeks. So that's 2 weeks per stage. The Moonbeam rollout will be more like 4-ish weeks with a 3-stage rollout. And that's kind of a simplified process because we've done this before and we have some comfort level with what that will look like. And so I say 4 weeks. There's, Christmas holidays for many folks in that period. And so give them some flexibility because I'm hoping that people will take a little bit of a break. But I think we'll see a much faster timeline between this initial producing blocks period, which is December 17th, and what we're calling a full launch, which we expect sometime in January. So with that said, that's kind of, we're just a platform. That's kind of like the bare bones version, right? Let's get it out. Let's get it rolling. We do expect, similar to Moon River, to have collator staking available right away. And that's something that many people took advantage of. I think we had, 880K mover locked in collator staking as of a week or two ago. And so, when you look at the 10 million Genesis supply, that's a pretty significant portion of folks using that functionality immediately. Similarly, there's a number of kind of behind the scenes integrations that will need to get rolling as soon as possible. So for Moon River, multi-sig was an important component, which was done through a fork of Gnosis Safe. We also worked with the Graph and are currently working with Chainlink to get those kinds of pieces up and running. And so all of these, as soon as we can get those done, will kind of pave the way for a lot of the projects that people are most looking forward to deploy as well. So we expect that to happen faster. I don't have specific timelines, but because we have the ability to plan ahead a little bit more than we did previously, we're optimistic that we can do this a lot faster.
Yeah, I'm really, I got my popcorn out and watching the rollouts of everything, because it's going to be, I think it's going to be, because everybody's learned so much. I know, your guys' team, Akala, everybody has learned quite a bit in this phase. So it'll be interesting to see how that all flows, because there's so much learned and so much it's been done. So so definitely, and you've talked about, the ecosystem, but how about the Glimmer token? So once it's like transferable and stuff like that, do you have anything you want to like share with everybody that as far as the usage of Glimmer itself?
I mean, the utility is going to be the same as Moon River, which is gas fees,
Great.
smart contract execution, governance, all of those sorts of things, and staking, of course, from an infrastructure perspective. I want to mention briefly, like I've mentioned staking a couple of times. Collator staking is specific to the people, the infrastructure providers producing blocks on Moon River and Moonbeam, and those are decentralized, permissionless parties. And so that's been something we've emphasized from the very beginning. And while security is really from the relay chain, the collators do matter in the sense of reducing the risk of front running. And so that's been something we've emphasized from the beginning, which is why collator staking is going to be available immediately, and also why we have this 3-phase launch process. One of those steps is to decentralize and really just add additional collators for stability. And then once fully launched, it will be a permissionless process.
Awesome. Yeah, it's going to be cool. So maybe, do you have anything else you want to share before we get to community questions? I think we have a list of them. I know the community is excited to ask some questions. We had actually a lot of submissions, like a ton, and we had some help to go filter through these because there's so many. So we apologize to anybody we didn't get to your questions. But do you have anything else you want to share real quick before we do that? Or
no, let's dive in.
Awesome. So I think the first one was from a user that, how does your EVM implementation differ from like Astar or Akala?
So there's a couple different ways. So again, I've mentioned where we've made some changes in addition to kind of that core EVM. So the biggest one that users will notice right away is the H160 account standards and ECDSA signatures, which are Ethereum style. And so the same way that you have an Ethereum account that starts with 0x, you can actually flip over to Moon River or Moonbeam and hold tokens using that same address. And the reason we did this is because mapped accounts are much riskier from a losing tokens perspective. And so we standardized on having one set of accounts, one set of keys, and we chose the Ethereum style to maximize compatibility. The alternative would have been, I have an Ethereum over here and a substrate over here. I only have the keys for the substrate one. So if you need to do something with the Ethereum implementation of that, the mapped account, it becomes really messy. And so
I can see people forgetting, quickly.
And so it the kind of initial reaction can often be, oh, this is complicated because it's not the same as everyone else. But our perspective is, give it a second. It actually helps drastically with the usability. And when you're coming in from an Ethereum experience, it makes things a lot easier. And so one of the other things that I mentioned, flipping between accounts, I'm specifically referencing MetaMask. And so Moonbeam has something called Web3 RPCs, which allow us to be natively compatible with lots of Ethereum tools and integrations. And I say that as in some of these other chains. I don't know the details of some of these implementations, but a lot of these other chains have sort of like this force fit integration to try and make substrate accounts work with MetaMask, and it takes you out of the experience a little bit. It adds some additional points of friction. And so that's not how Moon River or Moonbeam work. They work natively out of the box. All you have to do is add a new network, which you can do by either going to an app that has Moon River and Moonbeam enabled or by manually adding it. Usually it's easier to click a button. So the first one's what I recommend. And that isn't just MetaMask. That actually applies to a whole suite of tools. It mostly impacts developers, but that makes it so that they can kind of bring over their favorite Ethereum development tools and integrations without a lot of extra work. So that's things like Waffle, Truffle, MetaMask, Remix, all of these things they're able to use natively with Moon River and Moonbeam because we have these Web3 RPCs. So it's all pretty technical. I think the core piece that we try to stick to from a messaging perspective is it does make the development experience a lot smoother, especially when coming over from an Ethereum like platform. And that the net result of that is that there's lots more applications on Moonbeam, which I think we've really demonstrated our ability to deliver on that through the Moonriver deployment.
Yeah, seeing MetaMask work so smoothly with Moonriver just blew me away for the first time. I remember the first day when you guys launched that day. I think that night I was up waiting for it, and I literally connected my MetaMask wallet, and I'm like, wow, it works. It works easy. So it was very impressive. Yeah, that was a big thing. So yeah, it's cool to see all that. All these cool Ethereum tools work so well with it. So cool, awesome. And then so we have another question, and this is with related to Moonbeam having an economic impact on Moonriver or vice versa. So like, how is that gonna being that they're two different networks? I know they're canary networks and all that, but the whole idea that do you think there's going to be any impact on each other? So are they going to like drive off each other, benefit from each other? Do you see anything there?
I imagine there will be some correlation just because they are kind of sibling networks. I think there's a lot of speculation as to what's going to happen with the Moonriver network once Moonbeam is out there. And like that, I think that is a normal question to ask, but for us, like Moonriver will continue to be a very important part of what we do. And really one of the places that kind of like rapid iteration and innovation will continue to happen. And so we expect to very truly use Moonriver as this kind of canary wildcard network where people do kind of funky, interesting things. And to some degree, those may eventually move to Moonbeam, but we don't expect they all will. And a lot of the kind of thriving applications on top of Moonriver, we expect to continue to live on top of Moonriver. So there's been a ton of NFT deployments. There's been a bunch of AMMs and DEXs that we don't even know them, don't know the team. Yeah. And so those sorts of deployments seem to be doing really well on Moonriver, and we expect them to kind of continue to live there as we, in parallel, also work with teams on Moonbeam to work on their own deployments.
Awesome. That's great. So according to your website, so there's another question, all transaction fees are paid in Glimmer. Like to explain what the implications and what advantages does that have over fees paid in native currency, such as DOT or ETH? So I think they're talking about maybe about the bring your own gas, or could you explain the monetary system inside of Moonbeam? So,
yeah, I mean, to some degree, yes. Although I probably would not be the right person to go into any great detail about the monetary system. But so, Glimmer is the utility token and is used to kind of operate on the network. We don't have the bring your own gas kind of concept, and it is a native token. So like the phrasing of the ERC 20 ETH / DOT part of it threw me a little. But so, Glimmer needs to have very strong utility in order to really be a utility token. And so the economics were designed with that in mind. And so yes, there's, I think, merit to some of these other approaches to bring your own gas and that sort of thing. But for us, we're kind of marching forward with the original intention of the token. And in order to deliver true utility for all these projects that are building on top of Moonbeam and for all the individuals who are transacting on Moonbeam, Glimmer, I think, is a very central part of that plan.
Yeah, awesome. So another question too. So why would it be more beneficial for a project on Ethereum to use Moonbeam instead of creating its own parachain with Polkadot? I mean, I think the technical aspect is a big plus, but maybe you can say something about that, and then what are the differences between, one option and the other. So like, we're just rolling it with you guys. I mean, obviously the tech stack is monstrous to build out, and you guys have done that, but anything else you want to chime in on with that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's one that we get time and time again, I would say. So there's a couple things. Like, yes, it is. I mean, we've been working on Moonbeam for 2 full years, and we have a pretty large team dedicated to deploying Moonbeam. And even as you're looking at the Crowdloan activities right now, we have a community of, a couple 100,000 individuals helping support us. Garnering that kind of support is really, really difficult. And so to either be able to bootstrap your own parachain or to be able to build a community with enough time in advance of a potential deployment on top of Polkadot is a significant effort on top of all of the technological components. But the difference, just so folks know, of like running a smart contract, which you should be able to deploy fairly quickly on top of a smart contract platform versus building your own blockchain, it has some pretty serious implications. And it's not just obviously programming in Rust, which is what Substrate is built in, is a little bit different of a skill set than writing a Solidity smart contract. But beyond that, like all the tokenomics need to be figured out, the governance mechanisms, all the customizations that you want to do. So we obviously had to make some pretty big choices about our compatibility with Ethereum. And so to do the same is like no small undertaking. Yeah. And beyond that, I think there's a little bit of a view of this like black and white kind of thing. You either do a smart contract or you do a parachain or a parathread. And I think especially as Polkadot matures, that probably won't be the case, right? So you could do something like deploy a smart contract to test a concept, to test a theory, or run something in our test net to see if it gets traction before investing time and resources into building out a whole parachain. Or you could use it to kind of get that initial kind of community interaction before then migrating to your own parachain. So as much as, yes, there are a lot of projects building on Moonbeam because it's certainly the easiest first deployment like destination, we also expect that down the road, we're going to want to talk with the Parity team about making sure that these projects smoothly port to a parachain if that's what they think works best. And so we've talked to some teams that have had to weigh that option of, do I become a parachain or do I start with a smart contract platform? And it really just depends on what they need out of it, how much development time and effort they can put into it, and then how much time they've already put into building a community in order to be able to deploy. And like you guys can speak to that as well. It's no small feat to deploy as a parachain. And so it's something that I think most teams look at very seriously and put a great deal of thought into before choosing that path.
Yeah, there's so much behind it. And like you said, I liked how you touched about the community too, because that's not an easy thing to build out either. So you guys are doing both on the side. I mean, the tech side is monstrously built out, and like you said, that just building all that out is a lot. But so yeah, there's a couple other questions. There's another question somebody asked about was security. So what kind of security does Moonbeam offer the projects? And I know we get a lot of you get a lot of inherent security off of just being built on top of Kusama and Polkadot, which is so amazing. And you're getting all these updates, but maybe do you want to talk about at all about that or touch on that?
Sure. So, I mean, first and foremost, we're a permissionless platform. Mm-hmm. So we don't know all of the projects building on top of us. And that's a good thing in the sense that it encourages lots of projects to deploy. But as a user, it's something you need to be aware of as you see projects that, are listed on DeFi Llama, or even we recently launched an integration with State of the dApps for projects to list themselves there. And we don't know and can't vouch for all of those projects. But the benefits of having a permissionless platform, in our view, outweigh the benefits of having a very closed ecosystem where everyone is kind of thoroughly vetted prior to deployment. And so that's kind of one thing to note about any permissionless platform, is there is a lack of control, which hopefully has a net positive benefit. That said, there's also, from a security perspective, every parachain benefits from the security of Polkadot and Kusama relay chains. So that's worth noting. And when I say that, like you look at Kusama, I think we've got like 800 plus validators right now. And so when we talk about having shared security as something that's unique to the Polkadot ecosystem, and I think even other ecosystems are starting to adopt now, that's something that exists across all parachains and is not unique to Moonbeam. And then I think the last point that I wanted to just mention is, like, we have done and will continue to do audits across different elements of Moonbeam. That's very much a core part of our deployment process. And secondarily, when we're working with teams, we are pushing them to make sure they're audited as well and asking for proof of those audits and so forth. And so we do talk to a number of projects in different deployment stages. So I can't say that, every project we've spoken to has done those audits, but it is very much a part of our conversations and as part of our culture as kind of like an ecosystem, something we're encouraging all, projects to pursue very seriously on top of Moonbeam and Moonriver.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really good because when we see the next Moon Ocean come in and they say, "Oh, we're partnered with them," we can tell that's a good thing. Yeah. So, but I do agree with you that the having, it's a tough thing. It's a kind of a trade off to having a professionalist, so it's different. But yeah, so cool. So will the Moonriver? I guess this is another question. Will the Moonriver code base be the same as Moonbeam, or be different? So, and then maybe you can touch on, I think the answer is probably similar to the way Kusama and Polkadot roll out, but let you touch on that.
So certainly in the near term, the Moonbeam and Moonriver code bases are the same. A perfect example of how they'll differ is I've kind of alluded to some of these upgrades that should happen soon for cross-chain compatibility. And so those will go to Moonriver first. Even once Moonbeam's launched, Moonriver will always be the first deployment and kind of experimental destination for all of this code. That said, just due to the dynamics of how Moonriver was rolled out and will likely continue to be rolled out, I think when we look at decentralizing and handing things off to on-chain governance more completely, that very much will then impact what does or doesn't appear on top of Moonriver. And not all of those will be the same, right? The token holders in Moonriver are going to be and are today quite different from who we expect the token holders of Glimmer to be. And so that's something that is fairly important to keep in mind as, the initial kind of genesis of these two chains is shared. They're siblings for a reason, right? There are important differences between the two, not just in kind of personality and environment and token holders, but also, down the road, they will probably grow and evolve in different ways. And rather than try to anticipate what that will be and answer that more specifically in terms of how they'll be different, we're kind of just leaving the door open to see what the community dictates in terms of needs for each parachain and how they grow and evolve separately.
That's great. Yeah, that's so cool. So a lot of people just have a really confusion, I think, especially coming into this platform. Once you understand, I think, how Polkadot and Kusama work, that gives you more insight of how you guys have structured your things and how other people have too. So that's great. Somebody is asking about this because I know it's popular right now, Metaverse. Do you guys have any plans to cooperate with any Metaverse projects or any features or anything like that? Anything around the Metaverse people want to know?
Yes, not anything specific I can point to in terms of near-term deployments, but I'm sure everyone in the ecosystem knows about BitCountry at this point, which will be a parachain or is planning to be a parachain, knock on wood. And so with that, that's another team when we look to other parachains to integrate with, that's certainly one of the ones that we'll look to. So the short answer is yes. The long answer is we'll see exactly what that looks like, but I think there's going to be a really interesting Metaverse within the Polkadot ecosystem. And so that is going to be, a near-term priority for us is let's work on these ones that are sort of native and inherent to the Polkadot ecosystem. And then, afterward kind of look beyond to other Metaverse projects to, integrate with.
Yeah, that's so cool. So I guess there's a couple more. I'm going to skip this one. So how do you plan to participate on the next, after 2 years, parachain auctions? Do you guys have a treasury set up? How do you guys going to hold that so you guys don't have to? Are you guys going to do another crowd loan or,
there's a couple different things depending on how Moonbeam does. That may be something that the team is able to fund using the treasury. There is an on-chain treasury. So that's one option. There's also, I think if you look at our tokenomics, there were 15% of the supply set aside for various parachain lease offering funds. And so the first 10% obviously was used for this crowd loan. That does leave an additional 5% for other parachain lease activities. And so there's sort of a safety net there. But we're hoping to be successful enough to be able to fund that with the treasury.
Yeah, I wouldn't bet against you guys. Very cool. So Yeah, we'll wrap this up with like one last question for you. So, and I'm going to kind of change the question a little bit, but what was the most interesting challenge in development of Moonbeam, and what do you love being a part of this Moonbeam community, Moon River community, and maybe overall? Yeah.
That's a good question. So, I mean, it's two questions.
Yes.
So the first one, I've mentioned this account thing, so I don't want to harp on it too much. But that was a big question for us to be able to answer, and every team is approaching it differently. So for us, this challenge from a development perspective kind of continues, and will, as we look at our Ethereum implementation with ERC20s on top of it, making sure those maintain compatibility with both substrate. So things like XCM are really important, but also making sure we maintain compatibility with Ethereum. So things like EIP 1559, like those are all things that are coming from both directions and will continue to challenge us, but are challenges, of course, that we feel very ready to meet. So that's kind of, the first part. The second part about what excites me. I mean, I know it's easy to talk about community in terms of everyone loves their community and there's so many kind of interesting people, but we have a really rich ecosystem of ambassadors. We have about 1,700 ambassadors and about 70 senior ambassadors. And so like, I cannot understate how much these people mean to the project and are kind of continuing to drive growth and continuing to provide really helpful insight and feedback back to the project as we, cross all of these chasms that we may or may not have anticipated to happen. So like we're kind of flying through milestones this year, right? We've done this Moon River Crowdloan, then a Moon River launch, and then all the deployments that follow. And now we're doing the same process on Moonbeam. And so we're very much fueled not only by our broader community of supporters who've been with us for about 1.5 years now, but specifically these ambassadors who've helped us build a really like rich but also productive ecosystem. Like they add value back as much as they help us, get the message across. And so those things are all very, very valuable and something really unique, especially as like an outsider who hadn't been in crypto until a couple of years ago. So as much as everyone talks about community, those are things that continue to kind of wow everyone internally and really do help motivate us and let us think that we might be on to something really special here.
Yeah, the community it's interesting. Crypto community is just it gets such a bad rap somewhat because people get in these some of the way people act around meme coins and different things like that. But then you don't see all this. A lot of people don't see from the outside, doesn't see all these, the great community. People want to help. And I mean, it's amazing. You could go in Telegram and Discord and stuff, and people are just like volunteering their time, and they're not even looking for, I mean, they get rewarded in tokens, for doing hard work and stuff like that at times, but they don't look for it in general. They just want to help and build out. And I think people are just generally excited by the technology, which is cool. So it's a great community. Yeah, definitely.
The mover community is also fairly unique.
Marines.
I don't know if folks know, but like not affiliated with Moonbeam or Moon River project. There was a mover party in Tulum, like this circus wild riot rave thing. That I love that. You know what I mean? Like that's something where it, mover has taken on a life of its own. The moverines have so much genuine enthusiasm that they kind of all gathered to hang out with each other and party, completely independent of the project team. And so those things we love to see because that feels like we're not just a team telling you what we think is important, but you guys are also a community telling us what you think is important. And so that is very, very unique to crypto, I feel.
Yeah, it's so cool. Yeah. People get so excited about that. Yeah, like you said, in Mexico, like have the party and all that. Yeah, Shiny. I think he's a character on Twitter. I follow him, and he cracks me up. Like the post he said, he's such a diehard fan, and that's the cool thing. People get excited about this technology. It's not just so. Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time and everything and what you guys have done and continually produce for the community. We appreciate your team, I think, and I love the partnership with Bifrost. Bifrost, I know the core team is very excited to work with you guys, and so it's great to see things continually evolve. So thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's been great working with you guys.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for the time. Take care, people. Thanks.
All right. Bye.